You're buying your first serious vintage watch. You want history, quality, something you love to wear, and everyone keeps saying Omega or Longines.
But the deeper you go, the harder the question becomes, because these brands may seem similar, but they are built on very different foundations.
Today we're not just comparing specs. We're telling you what these brands really stand for and why your choice says more than you think.
Let's start with origins. Omega was founded in 1848 at a small workshop, but the name Omega came later, in 1894, after the revolutionary movement that was so precise they named the whole company after it.
Longines, even older, 1832, and unlike most brands back then, they built their own factory under one roof by 1867, incredibly rare at the time.
That allowed Longines to control every aspect of watchmaking, from movement development to case design to final assembly.
By the early 20th century, Longines was a leader in technical innovation. They made the world's first chronograph wristwatch in 1913, and their timepieces were used in polar expeditions, early aviation, and even by Charles Lindbergh.
Omega, meanwhile, grew fast through military contracts and sports timekeeping. They were official timekeeper of the 1932 Olympics and became a huge name in precision mass production.
Here is where it gets interesting. In the 1930s to 50s, Longines was producing some of the best finished movements in Switzerland.
Movements like 30L, 12.68Z, 23Z, and the famous caliber 13.N, one of the most beautiful chronograph movements ever made.
We're talking hand-finished bridges, gold chattons securing the jewels, beveled plates, blued screws, and even the gear teeth were polished by hand to reduce friction. That kind of finishing today, you would see it in $20,000 plus watches.
And they weren't just making one or two great movements. Longines had huge variety. They produced a wide range of calibers in-house, many with small differences in design, layout, and architecture.
That's part of their charm, but also a challenge. Because of that variety, finding the right parts for specific vintage Longines today can be difficult. Balance springs, satin levers, wheels, they're often not interchangeable across calibers.
It's a double-edged sword, incredible individuality and craftsmanship, but not mass standardized like Omega.
Longines movements of that era weren't just engineered, they were built and finished by hand, often with watchmakers taking responsibility for each piece. It was a human-driven process, full of nuance and pride.
Meanwhile, Omega was heading in the opposite direction, building ultra-reliable, mass-serviceable calibers like the 30T2 caliber, 266, 552, and the legendary 861 used in the Speedmaster.
Not as luxurious inside, but rock solid, modular, easy to repair, and very, very collectible.
And here's the kicker. Omega parts are everywhere. You can find components, service manuals, and specialists in almost every major city.
But try sourcing a balanced staff or spring for a 12.68Z and you'll understand why collectors admire Longines, but also hesitate. What many collectors don't realize is that before the 1950s, Longines was actually more expensive than Omega. It was the more respected brand, with better finishing, more prestige, and a stronger position in global chronometry competitions.
Longines was seen as a top-tier manufacturer, but in the 1950s, something shifted.
Strategically, Longines chose to move toward mass production. They started simplifying their movements, prioritizing volume over exclusivity.
And that's when they began stepping away from full in-house calibers and eventually shifted to using ETA-based movements. Still Swiss, still reliable, but no longer hand-finished like before.
They moved from craftsmanship to quantity, focusing on production volume over refinement. It made sense for scale, but it meant leaving behind that high-end, artisanal identity they once had.
Omega, on the other hand, had already mastered movement manufacturing at scale. By the 1950s, they doubled down the precision, internal consistency, and most importantly, marketing.
Omega didn't just make great movements like the 552 or 861, they started telling stories. Olympics, NASA, Speedmaster, Bond.
And that's what defined their legacy. Longines faded into quiet respectability. Omega became a global luxury name.
Fast forward to today. Modern Longines sells mostly in $1,000 to $3,000 range. Still well made and elegant.
Omega sits much higher, 5,000, 10,000s and up, backed by coaxial calibers, in-house tech and emotional brand equity.
It's not that Longines failed, they just chose volume over legacy. And Omega, they chose stability, identity and long-term value. Let's talk people, because sometimes it's not the movement or the dial that makes you fall in love with the watch, it's who's wearing it.
Right? You see a photo of someone like Henry Cavill or Nicole Kidman at the premiere wearing a killer vintage piece, and suddenly you are deep diving into Chrono 24 at 2 a.m.
Been there. So let's break it down, how Longines and Omega are showing up in the world right now, through the people wearing them.
Let's start with Longines. The ambassadors are all about quiet power, no showboating, just timeless presence.
Like Henry Cavill. This guy plays Superman, yes, but he's also a major watch nerd. He's into vintage pieces, he knows his calibers, and he's been rocking Longines since becoming their ambassador.
He's often seen in the Master Collection, classic three-handers with the moon face. Elegant, but not shouting for attention, totally fit the style. Refined, masculine, but understated.
Then there's Jennifer Lawrence. She's not just style, she's substance. Oscar winner, bold, no nonsense. She wears Longines in real life and on carpets, especially that Dolce Vita line, which matches her kind of quiet, modern glam.
And Kate Winslet, she goes even further. She didn't just put her name on a campaign, she co-designed a limited edition Longines, and all proceeds went to charity. That's next level brand alignment.
She wears small refined Dolce Vita pieces, usually gold, very vintage inspired. You will see her wearing them at charity events, film retrospectives, never flashy, always classy.
So, what's the why with the Longines ambassador? Thoughtful elegance. They're not chasing trends, they are the standard.
Now Omega. Totally different strategy. They're going for maximum visibility, and it works.
Take the 2025 Oscars. Omega was everywhere. Kieran Culkin, who won the Best Supporting Actor, wore the wheel with a deep burgundy dial and strap. Denis Villeneuve, Robert Downey Jr., Guy Pearce, all in Omega.
They weren't just wearing whatever. These were curated pairings. Omega's red carpet strategy, not loud, just legendary.
But the one who really owns Omega? Nicole Kidman. She's been with them for years. But here's the twist. She wears vintage Omegas. A lot.
Yeah, like tiny gold cocktail watches from the 50s. Mesh bracelets, mother of pearl dials. She wore one at the Emmys and another at a Vogue shoot recently.
She's got that I wear what I want because I know what it means energy, and the vintage angle gives Omega real depth. Like, it's not just a red carpet piece, it's a part of personal history.
And then you've got people like Coleman Domingo. He wore a $160,000 custom Speedmaster in Canopus gold at the Oscars. Baguette diamonds, red velvet suit, full power look.
It was theatrical, luxe and bold. Everything Omega represents in 2024.
So, let's wrap that up. Longines is about elegance that doesn't need a spotlight. Their ambassadors are classy, consistent and quietly powerful.
Omega is high visibility, high style and full of cultural weight. They are everywhere for a reason, because they planned it that way.
One brand is worn by actors who don't need to prove anything, and the other by actors who are redefining what prestige looks like right now.
It's like choosing between a classic novel and a blockbuster that you'll never forget. So, Omega or Longines?
One gives you legacy that's loud and recognized. The other, legacy you have to look for.
Omega is the headline, Longines is a footnote, the one real collectors always highlight.
But the right watch doesn't just fit your wrist, it fits your mindset. What speaks to you?
Tell us in the comments, are you Team Omega or Team Longines?
And if you're still deciding, take your time. Or browse the DuMarko collection and see which one calls your name.
Thanks for watching, and remember, the best watches don't just tell time, they tell stories.